Welcome everybody. We acknowledge and respect our complex history and we welcome everyone to build our future together. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed, recorded and published in accordance with Council's live streaming and recording of public meetings policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of Council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. There are no apologies, no one's on leave, no media, declarations of interest. Being none, as usual, public forum. I haven't been asked to do any public forum or petitions. So item 5 would be the confirmation of the minutes of the 17th of September. Would someone like to? Councillor Dennis, thank you. Would like to move. And a seconder, please. Councillor Goodman. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Oh dear.
That was Damien Ross.
Noted that Councillor Dennis has made a faux pas.
Might shout at dinner.
Would someone like to move, Councillor Dennis, the minutes of the special meeting that were held? Is that what it is? It's a special meeting. We did the special meeting, the council meeting, the council meeting of the same night, the 24th of September. Would someone like to move the council minutes be accepted? Councillor Crosling, Councillor Dennis, all of those in favour? Thank you. Item 6, there are no items that being laid on the table. The Mayor's report as presented.
Was there one in the middle there that we missed?
No, you did it.
Right, okay.
That was when your phone rang.
Okay.
If you wish to have a point of order, Councillor Dennis, do not be shy. Mayor's report as presented.
Mayor, to you, interesting, that was your farm? That the
Yes. Well, no, not entirely. It's the family farm, yes.
family farm? It'd be great to get some publicity on it because it actually sounds like a very interesting day. Is the media or anyone going to do a story or?
No, yeah, thank you. You'll second my mayoral report. Thank you, Councillor Maguire. It was really good and fascinating insight. There were a couple of Afghans there who had been in Australia for 22 days, and one of the women actually worked within government, and her husband's a lawyer, and he worked for equal rights for women in Afghanistan under the Taliban, and so you would understand why he has left Afghanistan, because it wouldn't end well for him. And there was a guy from Iran there, and we'd only been having a small discussion briefly in Ben's Forge actually, and they said, oh, we need to have a picture of you and your son and me and then this person and that person. And then they just zoomed them off into the ether. And I was talking with Yassim. I said, what is all that about, Yassim? I said, Patrick, they want to know where your bodyguards are. And they wanted to send that message back to Afghanistan and Iran that in Australia, you can be talking to the mayor, because in these other countries, the mayor's the tough guy. He's the guy that runs the place and full of corruption, unlike here in Australia. And so that was a fascinating insight into the freedom that they saw just being able to meet, someone apparently of stature. We consider ourselves to be equal to everybody, but they were fascinated by that. They were fascinated by most things they saw, the shearing and also nature. They love nature. They love to get out and be amongst the trees and the grass. They were just, and the cows, they just loved it. Really good.
Great story, thank you.
It is. Thank you, Councillor Maguire, for asking. there's no further questions, we will move to Councillor Turner.
Vote on the motion, that's all, sorry.
Haven't moved, seconded, and would like all those in favour. Thank you very much, Councillor Turner. Item 8, elected members report. Councillor Crosling has tabled her report. Thank you.
Can I just elaborate on a couple of things?
You can
Indulge me
highlight a
for
couple of things.
couple of minutes. If we just have had a lot of stuff happening over the last few weeks, and I just wanted to mention some fantastic events that have been happening. Obviously, I've mentioned about the dirt carts. I just wanted to give everyone a bit of an idea of the 250 drivers that came from all over, from WA to South Australia and the Northern Territory. It was fabulous to go out on the Saturday and see the wonderful track that Councillor Rayner has put on. It was my first time going out there, and it was a bit dodgy weather there, but they got through. But they did it over $20,000 through the canteen, so that was just one part of the money that they've raised. It was a fantastic event to be at, and I know lots of people went over over the weekend. On that same weekend, we obviously had the hockey tournament here. There was 365 junior players. They came from all over, from Hamilton, Mildura, Whyalla, Victor Harbor, Port Fairy, all over the southeast, and there was 89 matches played, and they played across 4 fields. The soccer helped out. They put on a canteen at the soccer, and they played one match over on the soccer pitch to get it all through. So 365 players. That doesn't account for all the families and everyone else that came in. The Scouts ended up having unpowered sites down at the Scout Hall. Everything was completely booked out. It was just, I went to Foodland Saturday morning, and it was absolutely pumping. The town was just, the economic spin-off that we would have got over that long weekend from those 2 events would have been significant. And just as a quirky little stat, I thought it was hilarious, the hockey sold 238 kilos of hot chips and sold out. So that's, you know, people, I was on egg and bacon rolls the Saturday morning, and it was just, everything was just pumping. Same at the dirt carts. I just wanted to congratulate both those committees on a fantastic couple of events over the long weekend. I also just wanted to mention that I went to the CFS dinner for the Naracoorte CFS Brigade and accepted the Certificate of Appreciation to the Naracoorte Lucindale Council on Friday evening from Brett Rumble, the captain. It was presented for the continued support and assistance that Council provide to the CFS, and they appreciate the collaboration and look forward to strengthening our partnership as we go forward. I also thanked the CFS volunteers and their families for their dedication and sacrifice and for being on call and being the backbone of our community's safety. So they appreciate the work the council do. I don't know, Daniel's probably got a lot to do with that when there's a tree down and stuff that happens. So they appreciate working with us and look forward to continuing that. And also the Naracoorte show was held on the weekend. It was 160th. It was a fantastic day. There was over 2,600 tickets issued, which was one of the largest shows I've had in a very long time. It all went off really well. Obviously the weather was a bit, well, it was great for obviously everyone who needs rain on Friday, but Saturday was a beautiful day. I'd just like to have a special mention to Councillor Downwood, who again placed 3rd in the men's chocolate cake competition, 2nd last year, 3rd this year. But anyway, thank you for putting in an entry. He did really well. And I think that was all. The family CFS day that they had 2 Sundays ago was also a fantastic event down the main street. There was kids and families there all day. So there's been lots happening, and there is lots to come over the next few weekends. So it's great to see some councillors and council represented at those, especially the multicultural sports carnival that is on this Saturday.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Councillor Downwood.
Mayor, just following on from Councillor Crosling's mention now, before I say what I was going to say, I'd just point out to Councillor Crosling that at the judging of the cake, she was saying how she wasn't judging, but thanks to Croslings who were sponsors of that fantastic event. And Monique had gone to the trouble of writing some notes in the show book, because it's a recipe that you follow. And so she'd put these in italics. I found out later, but what to do, what not to do with the cake. And I pointed out to her that she'd made a mistake. They'd obviously forgotten what the event was that they were catering to, which was the men's chocolate cooking cake. And what we don't read Nice. So anyway, so after the second time, I think I've made all the mistakes you can make now, so maybe next year I can move up the tree again. Anyway, I would like to just congratulate all the people that were associated with the show, the committee and the volunteers for an absolutely fantastic day. The amount of effort that goes into that over the year, it's not something that sort of happens overnight. So really do want to, acknowledge those people that do that, and all the other volunteers in town too, because we're very fortunate with what we have. Last night was the NAHEX, the now called Health Association Committee, which used to be the board. It was their AGM last night, and if anybody wants to be on the board, I think there's 3 positions available on that board that they weren't able to fill. But what came to our attention was a letter from Vivian Hocking, who was looking at what could be done about shelter for the airport for transfer of patients. She was noting that we have something like a bit over 200 fly-ins for patient transfers, and it's quite a busy strip, so there'll be times when there's people that are out in the open for anybody to see, so any sort of shelter that could be arranged to be put up to enable those transfers, whether it be from the weather or just from people being able to view. So it's something that we can need to look at down the track as to maybe council can be involved with that. It'll involve talking to RFDS and SA Ambulance as to what might be required, but I just wanted to bring that to the attention of council and we can follow it up.
Thank you, Councillor Downwood. And I note that Mr Willsmore was taking notes around that and would be delighted to follow that up. I'm sure he's got all the right contacts. Item 9, Chief Officer.
Chief Executive Chief Officer. Sound like CFS. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The first item is the election of LGA President, which was at your previous meeting. At that meeting, we did agree informally that the Mayor and myself would send some questions to the candidates after some further discussion, and we decided not to do that, and we didn't really receive any pressing comments from elected members. The Mayor did have the pleasure of having dinner with the majority of the candidates and some discussions. So probably hard to split them all and try to work out which president would be, I guess, to the most benefit of this region and this council. But they all do represent the views of the LGA rather than their personal views. So in discussion with Mayor Ross, we are recommending to vote for Claire Bowen from the City of Port Adelaide Enfield, but that's in your hands. So recommendation indicates that, but happy to take questions or alternative motions.
Councillor Turner.
I'll be happy to move that, Mayor.
Councillor Turner moves that
Select Claire Bowen.
LGA President would be Claire Bowen, Enfield, Port Adelaide. Second, Councillor Crosling. If there's no further discussion, Mr Smart and I did a lot of diligence in this area, and with his vast experience of these people, which I don't have, and meeting with them down at Grant a couple of Fridays ago, I think, was quite beneficial. So I'm in your hands. There is a motion before you that we would support the election of Mayor Claire Bowen. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Mr Smart.
Thank you. Again, this was on the agenda last meeting, but we didn't discuss it. So council committees, a lot of information there for you. No decisions need to be made tonight, but one consideration is if you are thinking, particularly from the independent members' perspective, if you were having the thought to reappoint the current members, which you can do, both the Audit and Risk and the NRLE. We wouldn't then need to go out and seek applications from new independents. So probably after your thoughts, not necessarily an official vote of any sort. Last time we struggled to find 3 independents for the Audit Committee. They all come in fairly late, and that's worked out pretty well. NRLE, I think we only had 3 nominations for, test of memory there, 3 nominations for the spot. 4 was it? Sorry, thanks Councillor Grundy. So again, we probably don't normally get overrun with independent nominations. So in your hands, if you wish for me to seek nominations, I'd have to go out and advertise now. If you don't, we can bring it back to the November meeting to potentially endorse existing members. NRLE, 2 board members have indicated they're willing to continue. I've had a reply from one of the Audit and Risk Committee members that they're willing to. Haven't had a response from the other 2 yet, but happy to take your thoughts on that. Various other committees that will be up for either reappointment, different members being on various committees. The presiding members of those committees is also up for consideration at November, as is the Deputy Mayor position. So a little bit to, I guess, put your minds to before then. So when we get to the November meeting, you'll have, I guess, some thoughts of how that may work. But happy to take your informal direction, if that's okay, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Maguire.
Would it help if we foreshadowed a motion for those 2 committees now to actually give you some direction and vote on it? Is that something we can do? So renominate the 2 or the current chairs?
Well, it's not foreshadowing a motion. You would either prepare a motion for the November meeting. It's got to be dealt with in November.
Yes, but going by what the CEO said about if we change the chair, we need to then reapply to the independents. Is that correct?
No.
I've read that wrong. Okay.
No, so my indication is purely for the appointment of the independent members. The presiding member can be done at November without any foreshadowing. So, so it's just an indication whether that's perhaps what you might be looking at. That's all.
Councillor Dennis.
My committee doesn't have one, sorry. Yeah, so, but I'd be interested to hear the thoughts of the current chairs of those informally. Yes.
Current chair being Councillor Ross.
As you mentioned, it is very hard to get people that are to show a bit of interest in the committee. If the other 2 members that haven't responded, it'd be worth just, obviously we've got time to follow that up. I don't think, if they're willing to keep going, I'll be happy for them to stay on board. They're very, very good. All three come with different backgrounds, 2 accountants, one's a lawyer, so I think we're pretty happy to have those calibre of people there, so I wouldn't really want to be changing anything with that. So,
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I've attended a number of audit and risk meetings, and it seems to be quite a good blend of independent members. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Grundy? Councillor Grundy?
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Look, I haven't discussed this with anyone, and but I don't know of any appetite to change what's there presently. But if there is, we deal with it. So, yep.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Mr. Smart?
Okay, based on that, I'll bring a recommendation back to the next council to reappoint existing members, subject to confirmation from the other 2 Audit and Risk Committee members. Next one is about our facility closures over the Christmas New Year period. Given Christmas falls on a Wednesday, yes. It just makes it a little bit more complicated when we close open, but the dates as detailed in the report. Staff take some grace leave and other leave during that time. We operate a skeleton crew across various gangs. Operations quite often take advantage of using a bit of leave during that period. So a recommendation is there for our office and facility closures.
Would someone like to move? Councillor Goodman and Councillor Turner. Seconded. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Snow?
And the December 2024 meeting, I haven't actually got a recommendation in for that one, I've just noticed, I think. Would like a recommendation from council that we shift the 24th December 2024 meeting to this previous week, Tuesday the 17th. So apologies for not putting that recommendation in there. Someone would like to support that, unless you want to meet on Christmas Eve.
Would be merry.
Short meeting.
Councillor Rayner moves. Councillor Dennis second. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. Key projects. Mr. Willsmore.
Thank you. Just wish to add that the verge smoothing works at the Lucendale airstrip began yesterday, so they'll be carried out this week. That was a request from the CFS at annual budget talk.
Mr. Willsmore, happy to take questions. Mr. Willsmore, what date's the pool due to be open?
It'll be open the 25th of November, so
25 November.
Yep. So we'll start filling mid next month. Once we've done some cleaning, then it takes a bit of water balancing, chemical treatment and the like before we open for some swimming lessons that have occurred earlier than normal.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Willsmore. While you're standing, can you give me an update on where we lie with the Narracourt Creek and the weirs?
Yep, so just going through the procurement of those weirs, so that design was all approved by Landscapes SA, so working with the tenderers there to review before we proceed with those works.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
We remind the community of the unfortunate happenings if you get in the pool before it's ready, Mr. Willsmore. What occurs to the parts of the body if you get in there before it's ready?
Yes, we remind the community if there's too much chlorine, some of your sensitive areas can get some burning. So we encourage everyone to stay out until it's open. Thank you, Councillor Dennis.
It'll be bathers anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Crosling?
I just wanted to touch on the swimming lake opening on the 25th that Mr. Willsmore just mentioned. I was approached by the schools. The schools have a water safety program in the curriculum. They are finding it extremely difficult to work with the Department of Education to get instructors down here. It is really, really hard. The young SSO that has now taken over that role was finding it really hard. It wasn't getting much traction with the Department of Education. And Council, I spoke to Daniel, forwarded a couple of emails, and they have kindly opened the swimming lake a week early, so these swimming lessons can occur across from Sunrise to Francis and the North and South Primary School. So I just want to thank Daniel and the team out there for being flexible in making that happen, because if it wasn't going to happen, there's talk of trying to, send our kids to Wollonda for swimming lessons, which is just ridiculous. So I just wanted to make that mention that we appreciate that Council's going to open a week early for swimming lessons.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. Any further questions for Mr. Willsmore? Sedmans.
Nothing further to add to this report. Happy to take any questions.
Seems to be going very well at the moment. Tell me, the rate arrears, are we tracking about as we would expect on an annualised basis, and have any ratepayers been coming to see us for help?
Yes, I would say it's in a fairly good position. We have had a bit of contact. I had the opportunity to be a bit more hands-on with rates while Jodie was on annual leave. So I found people are usually fairly proactive. We are making a concerted effort also to meet with people to look at making positive steps forward. The Section 184 process that Council endorsed earlier in the year, we're slowly getting into that next round, but also mindful of the economic situation a lot of people find themselves in. So yes, I would like to say that it is making positive steps forward.
Thank you very much. Item 12, minutes and recommendations. Item 12.1, Naracoorte Regional Livestock Exchange. Would someone like to move that the minutes of the 2nd of October? Councillor Grundy will move the minutes and Councillor Ireland second. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Councillor Grundy, yes.
I was just going to offer some comments, a bit of a report on the October meeting.
Well, you can, and actually it's way better if we actually move and second the motion, and now you can speak.
I'm all in favour of that. Thank you, Mayor Ross. Yep, so on the 2nd of October, we had our NRLE meeting. Some key points out of that were the operating income is sitting at 14% of budget. The operating expenditure sits at 13% of budget. Cattle numbers are at trend. Sheep numbers are below trend. There's probably a couple of reasons for that. The season would be feeding into those numbers, I expect, along with the fact that there's an inconsistent treatment of foot rot assessment between South Australia and Victoria, which is creating a lot of leakage of particularly adult sheep from the Naracoorte yards going to other destinations, which is quite a problem for us. The sheep EID is an ongoing situation which is unsatisfactory from a funding perspective and a logistics perspective. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Smart and Mr. Willsmore. Their efforts have been unwavering with their focus on reaching a satisfactory outcome in relation to these matters when it comes to dealing with statutory bodies and ministers, etc., etc. The good news out of the agenda was that compared with other yards which are similar, the NRLE is trending up for numbers of both sheep and cattle compared with similar yards where most of the other yards are trending downwards. So we're attracting a lot of attention from a numbers perspective all the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Would someone like to move the financial report of the NRLE for the 25th of September? Councillor Ireland, Councillor Downwood. All those in favour? Carried, thank you. Item 13, reports for decision. Mr. Smart.
Just a policy update on the accommodation associated expenses, both for elected members and staff. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We've tried to change it from being a taxation allowance-driven policy to a bit of a practical both ways. So I commend that policy to you, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Dennis? You move the policy as it is, as it stands. Thank you very much. A seconder, please. Councillor Turner. Any discussion? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We go next. Item 13.2, review of the Old Road and West Avenue intersection.
Thank you. So just brought this report back to council. So we've undertaken the safety assessment of the intersection to review the priority, which road should have priority for the intersection based on traffic numbers and heavy vehicle movements. It did support changing the intersection priorities. The current priority is West Avenue Road over Old Road, but the report also noted changing the intersection would be quite costly, so you need to offset the road so it's a staggered intersection, not a straight line from a road safety point of view, would result in a fair bit of tree clearance. We wouldn't have to acquire land based on the concept plans provided, but based on the cost and the relatively low traffic volumes, the recommendation is that the priority of West Avenue Road and Old Road remains as it currently is. So West Avenue Road is the thoroughfare of Old Road. So that's our recommendation. Happy to take questions.
Are there any questions of Mr Willsmore? Mr Willsmore, I note in the report the discussion around sightlines, and I was wondering whether, along with signage, whether we could improve the sightlines with remedial tree trimming, etc.
Yes, so tree trimming has been carried out since the time of that report, so we'll have to replace the signs as per the report, but that's already opened up some of the sight distances.
I do find it fascinating that we're in discussion about a road at Old, where are we? West Avenue and Old Road, where we have a straight line road and we're looking to offset it somewhat, and not very far to the north, where we have Mini Crow meeting Lucendale Road, we get absolutely no traction at all when it comes to driver safety. I find that just a little bit of an anomaly, whereas we can look at it and actually decide that due to the traffic, we can most probably do some work there, whereas where there's a lot of traffic, our friends at DIT struggle with the notion of public safety. Would someone like to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Second, please, Councillor Grundy. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Willsmore. 13.3. Mr Smart. Are we going? Is Mr McCroskey? Mr McCroskey.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. This report is the report that was undertaken in regards to funding that council were fortunate enough to get through the Office for Export and Racing and the Limestone Coast LGA. The scope identified 14 sites of sporting clubs and organisations within the Narrabeen Council area. This is not exclusive, so there's plenty more sporting clubs and organisations out there to this list. Probably the common trends that were identified through the report are DDA compliance, unisex facilities, change rooms, for example, and ageing infrastructure. So it'll give council something to think about further, should and they wish to take it further and into the future with other clubs and organisations that may approach council.
Thank you, Mr McCroskey. Any questions? The question for the elected members, given this audit, I just wonder,
Well, I think Councillor Crosland may have one also.
Excellent. Let's start with you, Councillor Grundy.
I was wondering where that was going. Thank you, Mayor Ross. Look, this is obviously a very comprehensive report, and I guess does it start to ask the question where to from here? And I suppose in the past, historically, council has provided in-kind support, direct financial assistance, and advocacy, I suppose. So, is this going to open the floodgate of requests, and how do we deal with them? And I was just wondering, and I'm not going to ask for it here formally tonight, but whether it's a good idea to try and establish a precedent over the last 2 or 3 financial years of what council has actually provided. I remember Councillor Ross pushed hard for the Kaibi Football Club to lights were intended, and there was a loan facilitated through the local government finance association. That kind of thing. Is it worth us, nominating what's happened previously to help set some framework to go forward?
Thanks, Councillor Grundy. I think it's probably where it needs to go due to the, similar age of a lot of the facilities and looking at what we've done historically. But there's probably a likelihood that we may be approached by a lot of clubs because a lot of them are the same age, etc. So that puts pressure on council to either say yes or no to various clubs, and who do you say yes or no to? That's a fairly difficult decision to make. And then we have a policy that allows funding, either cash contribution, loan funds, or other forms of assistance. But the part of the audit also outlined probably a hierarchy of where all the facilities sit, and that's based on not our hierarchy but a state base. So if clubs then applied for funding, that's how the sport would consider where they sit from a state and local perspective. So I think there is a bit of work to be done, probably some sort of strategy hierarchy different, similar to our assets, even though these are not our assets, are on our land. A bit of work to bring back to council for consideration, really as a guiding principle to help make those decisions in the future, which generally won't be easy.
Councillor Crosland.
I just wanted to say I thought this was a really good report to have. Obviously, it aligns with one of our priority actions in the strategic plan. And I think it's not just only good for council, but it's great for the individual sporting clubs to have this data. A lot of sporting clubs are proactive and they are trying to apply for grants. So this audit document will really help a lot of clubs that are applying, because there is lots of money out there in state and federal streams. So I think some clubs are being proactive more than others, but I think this will very much help all of them. And whether or not some of those clubs come back to us and ask for, some sort of contribution to that, I'm not 100% sure, but I just think it's a great document to have. And I suppose the next step is it something that we look at as a council? Do we have to look at it and see whether we are going to build in, I suppose, following on from Councillor Grundy's comment, are we going to, I suppose we can't fit in our long-term financial plan because it's not technically our infrastructure, but it's something that we're going to delve into a little bit more and see where we can probably help out if we end up having 2 sporting clubs come next year and say, hey, can you give us 10, 20, 50, $100,000. It'd be good to obviously have that next step from this audit, but I think it's a great document to have.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Councillor Goodman.
Yes, I very much appreciated reading through that report and seeing the work that has been done to date. I agree with Councillor Grundy and Councillor Crosling about the idea of setting some expectations around what financial contribution might look like year to year so that clubs know what is on offer. I think also perhaps some framework or guidelines around expectations from council about what else we might be looking for when they come seeking money in terms of the level of concept design that has been developed or something like that, so that we know, what the long-term plan is looking like. I do note that this is an infrastructure asset audit, and that is necessary and useful, but it doesn't give us much of an idea about capacity or financial situation of these sporting clubs. And I guess it could be argued that that's not our business, but at the same time, if they are asking for contributions and support from council, I think that that might be a starting point for us as well. And if we do identify that there is a gap there in terms of clubs having capacity to do this work, or the financial, acumen background to plan ahead and manage these kind of projects, that might be a starting place for us in terms of assisting clubs with that first before they move to the next phase.
Mr. Smart.
Thanks, Councillor Goodman. Good points. So our current approach generally, we encourage all clubs or organisations to, as early as they can, to sit down with us. So we try to work through our expectations, but also our experience on what might be the state or federal expectations, how to prepare, get yourself ready as early as you can, so you're never quite sure when funding opportunities will come from state or federal. So yes, we already work with a number of clubs, and we do send a message out to them that the early they can talk to us, we provide guidance. If they're going to request assistance from council, we seek all their financial information, membership numbers, all as much information we can to be, fully informed of whether, council can then be informed as whether a club has capacity to do more or not, or what all those things might be. So we already undertake that, and that's sort of part of our policy and general approach, but all good points. Some clubs do it better than others. Could be due to the people and the either a short number of volunteers or more however each club's situated. But yeah, we already take that approach where we sit down as early as we can with them.
Mr. Smart, is there a better way to do it than what we're currently doing, do you think?
Oh, not sure of a better way, but I guess it's more communication with the clubs just to make, I guess, a level of awareness that they don't lob on council, 2 days before a funding application closes, etc. So, yeah, trying to enforce that pre-preparation. I think it's probably about your best you can do. Some clubs will be better equipped than others.
So given that communication, is there something that we could develop, a one-pager that we could develop to send out to clubs and associations that within our area that would highlight what you've said and, the need that, this is when you come to us, these are the sorts of things you need to have developed?
We have done that. Yep, we have done that in the past and continue. Yep. Hence, we already do that.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
You'll see in that report, they make reference to encouraging clubs to do master plans. So that itself, that process will probably allow them to probably better prepare for when they do go to do a grant application, that they are successful. So that it does make recommendations in there. So there's numerous people that are around their community that do grant applications. So it's just a matter of probably what we probably could do is actually collate a list of names of people who do those in the region and maybe have that on hand when someone does come or a club.
Help them develop a master plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Because we've all seen what it's like with master plans and how useful they are. So it's something that the clubs probably should be doing themselves. So.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Good suggestion.
Yeah. I'll just mention one last thing. A lot of the clubs that I speak to that are applying for these grants, there's a lot that has to go into these grant applications, and a lot of clubs aren't always necessarily asking for financial help. I've had a few mention to me what would be really great from council and maybe something we look at in the future for, there's a lot of clubs that need a lot of money for ageing infrastructure and so on, is needing help with grant writing. It is an art. There is a science behind it, and I think councils, and it's not just sporting clubs, that's not just a sporting, that's for many other art galleries, whatever, but I think if you had that sort of in-house expertise, that's another way that we could help our community, whether it's sporting clubs or whatever, to actually put in good grant applications to successfully gain state and federal funding.
Councillor Goodman.
I'm going to add one more as well. I think I understand and accept that council does meet one-on-one with clubs as they request it, but I guess this report highlights that it's not just going to be 1 or 2 clubs, there's going to be lots in the near future that's going to require this kind of support. And I guess I was thinking that there might be good benefit in holding a workshop or some presentations that step the clubs through what the process looks like, what master planning looks like, where you can go to for these kind of help, how long the timeframes might be for the processes, how you get in front of the people that you will need to, so that everybody is receiving the same information, and that maybe that's they can work together then, but also it's not such a impost on council time to be doing these one-on-one meetings.
I think we could just leave that as a question on notice, and that's something we can look forward to in the next calendar year, at the start of next calendar year, which will be winding into the end of the year and having workshops early in next year. That might be more appropriate. Would someone like to move that Councillor Ross and Crosling? All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Operations report. For noting. Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. 14.2. Dickinson's Road comparison. Mr. Willsmore.
Thank you. As requested, I provided this report, so there's a summary of roads that join a link road based on our hierarchy to a DIT road. As members can see, some traffic counts volumes are higher than the range, some are in the range and some are below the range. Also provided some commentary on the Ausroad heavy vehicle classification that we use. And then just for this specific example, just the financial impact of a change within the hierarchy. As members have previously heard, we use the road service function to drive the hierarchy. So that means known land use of the area, surrounding roads and the like are taken into consideration. The traffic counts are used to inform the decision making, but isn't the final driver. As we've reported before, if we just purely based on traffic counts, most rural living roads would be classified as link or collector roads. So I'll put it back to elected members. If we wish to change our approach, happy to do so, if directed, and using traffic count data. But then, of question, if we've got 3 different traffic counts along the road, which do we use? Do we use the low, the high, or the average? Because when we previously submitted a road for LGA transport strategy, it wasn't supported by the group because it didn't indicate the road was a through road. So provide this for your information, but happy to take questions if needed.
Mr. Wilsmore, does it count, there's meant to be driving on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, depending on which way you go. The counter can't disseminate the direction of traffic?
Yes, it can.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Wilsmore? Councillor Grundy.
There's a lot to digest there and a lot to discuss potentially, and I just don't know if this is the right forum to do that. Maybe a SAP meeting if it wants to be thrashed out, and it'll involve much more than what we can do here tonight. Obviously very comprehensive. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Grundy. Next item. 14.3.
Thank you. Just wanted to provide an update on native vegetation. So we've got a couple of projects that are still with them. We've requested to have a meeting with management of native veg. Their assessment appears to have slightly changed, and we're concerned about their approach to look at the potential of a tree, not the current condition. So we've requested to have a meeting with them so we can gain further understanding. We've, for many years, used an accredited assessor to do our assessments and submit to native veg when required. That's been based on a native veg summary sheet which tallies up your biodiversity rating and then your significant environmental benefit financial offset. So there's been some concerns raised in one of the assessment panels that calculation doesn't equal a significant environmental offset. So we've provided that for members' information, but we still need to go back to them and hopefully they agree with our request for a meeting so we can clear it up, because it would be somewhat challenging to do many public safety upgrades if that's their approach.
Mr. Wilsmore, we wouldn't be on our own.
No, you're correct. So I've also raised it with the LGA, with our roads groups to push that on. There's some councils aren't having challenges because they're not removing any trees, some are. So we're looking at doing that to do some lobbying from the district as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wilsmore. Councillor Grundy.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Yep, so I guess regarding the assessors and that sort of thing, and I don't know if I'm reading the report correctly, is it a relatively subjective process? We've changed assessors and we're getting a different outcome. Am I reading that into it? No.
No, as I mentioned before, we've used the same assessor for many years. So it's only been this year that we've started to see some responses that haven't aligned with the assessment of our accredited assessor. So native veg about 8 years ago or so needed accreditation for the assessors, so we've now engaged a local contractor consultant who's got a lot of experience with native veg. So he's using the same format that we previously used, and we're not getting the same sort of comments that we're now getting back. So that hence why we've asked for a meeting with the native veg guys team to work out what we can do, or if we need to tidy up our applications more as well.
I guess that's what I was alluding to. And is there a way around that, or is there a way of massaging that a little bit, and obviously, you know the best answer to that. Frustratingly, when it comes to Clarksons Road and us at Narracoorte as opposed to a council in Mallee, we're going to be dealing with native trees and what have you. And I'd like to know what the dollar amount is that we've had to part with in the form of what I'm going to call it a green fine, because really that's an impost on the ratepayers, which I think is totally unfair. The reality of the situation is that we've got plenty of roads in the district where there are trees which are arguably too close to the road. And what does it get back to? It gets back to the reasonable test. If you're a driver, you use your common sense and you drive to the conditions. So this business of taking out a lot of trees, potentially unnecessarily, and along with green fines going with it, it's really just frustrating the process of us improving our road network. And I don't know quite what the answer is, but I think the native veg people and the DIT people need to be perhaps talking to each other and being a little bit more reasonable, because at the end of the day, the community pays for it.
So, Councillor Grundy, is that a question on notice around what it might be costing council annually?
That is a question. That is a question specifically on Clarksons Road. I don't know how I should formalise that, whether I should formalise that by way of a question without notice at the end of the meeting or now. But
I'm happy for you to just have that question now.
Yeah.
You can have that question now.
If we know the answer, yeah. I'll take it on notice.
Thank you, Mr. Willsmore. Exactly the answer I was looking for.
I just ask a question, excuse my ignorance, but is the native veg have a cookie cutter approach? In other words, is it the same set of rules that apply to an area that is full of vegetation and trees like the Narracoorte, Hathaway, Lucindale sort of area, comparing to an area, say in the Mallee, or another area where there's hardly any trees? And I find it quite frustrating that we've got trees everywhere here, and we're getting fined heavily for taking out trees to make the roads safer for road users. And I'm just wondering whether they actually do they do a total tree count per square 100 kilometres or 10 kilometres or whatever it is, or we just have the same rules for an area in the northern part of South Australia where there's no trees, and they're applying that cookie cutter approach? Because I would like to think there's some common sense applied, that if you've got significantly more trees per 100 square metres, you could significantly remove more trees. Is that just for my understanding of this process?
So it's the way the assessment works. It's a spreadsheet, but it's based on the condition of the road, so visual inspection. But then it's also based on the area, so known endangered species, if it's nesting habitat, that sort of stuff. So there's some formula behind it, but it takes in a number of different aspects to identify what is at risk in the biodiversity score. And just to clarify, when we call them green fines, so council have the option to pay the significant environmental offset amount or go into a 10-year land management agreement to plant trees. So that ends up being quite a resource burden to manage the site for 10 years compared to paying the fees. So I can come back with the cost, but yeah, again, it's individual tree has a different price on it based on nesting hollows, size of the tree, condition of the tree and the like. So it's no one set, you're taking down 10 trees, that's going to be the same figure everywhere. Thank you.
Councillor Goodman.
I'd just like to add to this discussion, following on from Councillor Grundy's comment about DIT and native veg talking to each other more. I think that we are focusing on the impact that we have with costs being paid into a significant environmental benefit fund through the native vegetation, who do the assessment on the trees that need to be removed. But they are not the ones setting the requirement for these trees to be removed. That is the Department of Environment and Transport, who are setting these setbacks based on safety assessments. And so I think that perhaps blaming the Native Vegetation Council for this is misplaced. And like Councillor Grundy said, maybe there's more conversation needs to be had between the Native Vegetation Council and the Department of Infrastructure and Transport about the decisions that they are making on the workload and costs to council for tree removal.
That's a novel thought, Councillor Goodman. We'd like to think that the Department of Infrastructure and Transport and other departments like Emergency Services would talk more often.
You'd like to think.
We would like to think. Councillor Ross.
Probably just to touch on, maybe give some context to what Councillor Turner is looking for is, I think a fair bit to do with this is the quality of the road too. So we're looking at doing a sealed road, which would technically people may go faster, which means the verge is going to be a lot wider, is what they're trying to do. So is what we're actually looking at putting down is actually dictating a fair bit to do with what's going to happen to the periphery, and that is the trees. So so that, you know, that's where do we have the option of lowering the speed limit, or do we, you know, look at a slightly different version of the road, and that is an unsealed road. So then that would have a lower speed limit, therefore less impact to the verges. I suppose that's probably a bit to do with that as well.
Yeah, thank you. So one, we can't speed limit unsealed roads. Two, so we do work with native veg. There is a bit of back and forward. We're not in the habit of removing trees unnecessarily. So if we can remove one tree compared to 7 trees on the other side, modify the alignment, we've come to an agreement there. That hasn't been accepted this year. So they're still saying that tree needs to remain, even though we've provided further evidence of pushing it that way to get away from that tree will require more tree removal. So hence why we want to have a meeting that either different assessors, not sure, but we want to have a meeting to understand why it seems to have gotten a lot more difficult this year compared to many years before then.
Councillor Maguire.
Through the Chair, probably to Mr Willsmore, Mr Crosby, there's a developer in Naracoorte that's been held back because he wants to develop and there's 5 stringy barks. So that's got nothing to do with road or safety. So why is that an issue, not to remove those?
Thank you, Councillor Maguire. It's in reference to the stringy barks, are obviously a significant habitat for red-tailed black cockatoos. We've been trying to work with Native Veg Council in regards to how we can better manage the site and look at potentially trying to manage through the whole process so it doesn't hold up 35 proposed development plots. At this stage, Native Veg provided us some feedback, and it's now gone back to the developer to further investigate and work out what options they have going forward.
Thank you. Planning Compliance 14.4.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Just a quick one, probably to highlight that the fire danger season commences the 1st of November. This has been brought forward by 3 weeks approximately due to the unseasonal weather we've had over the winter.
So compliance is working on vacant blocks and slashing, etc.
That is correct. So our compliance officer, FBO, has been out around about all the district and serving 105 notices, encouraging as a proactive approach before we go out and undertake the works and expiate if required.
Thank you, Mr. Mikulski. Councillor Crossley.
I'm not sure if it's here operations, but I just wanted to remind the community that we do have free hard waste days coming up this Saturday in Naracoorte and the following Saturday in Lucindale. So everyone's having those spring cleaning sessions. It's time to get rid of all your hard waste.
Thank you. 14.5. Mrs. Collins.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. As touched on by yourself and also Councillor Crosling, we're into our very busy and exciting community event season, which kicked off at the start of this month and will go through till the end of April. So there's a lot happening around the villages. So stay tuned and keep an eye out on our socials and our website, and hope to see some of you at some of our exciting events.
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. And, you know, if I could only encourage people to, you know, we've got the Multicultural Festival this weekend, and then the Caves 30-year festival, which will be quite a weekend.
Yep.
Quite a weekend. Councillor Crossley.
I just wanted, through our Arts and Culture Coordinator, Jane Ellis, I just wanted to, and this is with my Governing Council Chair hat on from the Naracoorte South Primary School, thank Council for the funding that we received for our mural that was open today at the South School. We were funded through the K's Connection program. The mural is done by Taylor J, who did our beautiful pink sheep on the sound shell, and it's all local flora and the caves, southern bentwing bat, and cow, she was all local, and we couldn't have done it without funding from council. So thank you for that. And I also just wanted to mention the art gallery exhibition that's on at the moment of Kath Baldock, who was a local watercolour artist. It's absolutely amazing. It was meant to close, I think, end of next week, but has now been extended until the end of November.
Thank you, Councillor Crosling. Yes, I agree with you with the Kath Alcock. That's a good exhibition. Item 15, 16, 17, nil. 18, questions without notice. Being none. 19, motions without notice. There being none. Item 20, matters the CEO considers to be in confidence.